This podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. Our friends over at SeatGeek are giving us a promo code of TBA Wrestling. That is TBA Wrestling for $20 off your first purchase. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to Gunners Rest Podcast, where we are positively Arsenal, and that we are. And we do have a little bit to talk about. We have England in a semi-final. We have Trossard officially on the brink of joining Besiktas, and so much more. Not so much on the Arsenal front, but maybe just injury news. Unfortunately, I feel like this summer has been, as an English person, exciting to see England playing not playing, with the episode, I feel like the tangent I'm going to go on in this episode is actually about the style of play England have and the hypocrisy that England fans have that have spent the whole season tearing apart Arsenal. So I will talk about that a lot today. But just England doing very well, but this constant fear of just trying to get our players back. And unfortunately, of the players that are still out there, when you look at Rice, Saka, Eze, Saliba, Trossard, nope. Sorry. Saliba, and then Moreno, Raya, and Zubamendi. There is because at this point, all these teams have to stay there now. They're playing, they've gone the distance, because even if you lose the semi, you are in the third and fourth place game. So you have to see out the whole tournament. So the fact that we have if it's Spain, England has 7, and then we've got 1 in France, none in Argentina. So you have 8 players left, including our best goalie, our main centre-back, our main holding midfielder, our 10, our main winger, and technically the rest are, bench-ish players. Zubamendi, maybe you could say, is a starter. So as far as getting our players back as soon as possible, worst case scenario, because like I said, that is the spine missing. And Odegaard's only just going home now after the England game. So that's not ideal. But the other part of it is that we knew 3 players were carrying injuries and going to need an extended break compared to others. So as long as those 3 players got home early, it wouldn't be too much of a problem for next year's campaign. Here's the issue. The 3 players I mentioned are our actual spine, Saliba, Rice and Saka. They are the 3 players that are going to be out there for the full extent of the whole tournament. So not ideal for Arsenal. Good for England. Good if you're a Spain fan. Good if you're a France fan. And obviously shout out to any Argentinian listeners. But yeah, it couldn't have necessarily gone worse in the sense of getting our players back. But this is Gunners Rest Podcast here on a Monday. We have no Miller on Miller Monday. That's why you heard the usual intro. We'll be back on Wednesday. I'm going to try and see if I can get Joe in or someone in to jump in on the Wednesday episode. As always, iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, and on YouTube. If you search TBA Wrestling on YouTube, which is also our SeatGeek, you'll find the YouTube channel that the audio gets posted over there on that channel. If you simply just search Gunners Rust Podcast on YouTube, you'll find it, the videos. So in case you're a listener that likes to just have it on the TV or on the phone as opposed to on iTunes and Spotify, that's a way of doing it. And we also have a Patreon, so please check that out. £6 a month gets you in an Arsenal raffle for a graded Arsenal card every single month, plus loads of extra audio every single week. And as the season starts to get closer, we'll be talking so many transfers, so many preseason games and reviews and previews of the preseason games, what we got planned coming up, what we want to happen, can we go back to back in the first time in the modern history, all that kind of stuff. But as for today, I think we'll kind of review back the couple quarterfinals that mean something maybe to Arsenal, and then we'll kind of talk about in the second half my big overwhelming feeling of people being caught red-handed in, not a lie, maybe a lie, in hypocrisy this tournament. So we'll get to that in a moment. So first of all, France were against, I believe, Morocco. I need to double check these fixtures. The games have happened so much. It's actually really hard to not keep up with, but sometimes you think, oh, who were France playing? Was it Paraguay? And then you realise, oh no, that was 10 days ago and not since we last spoke here on the podcast. So I'm just searching it now. The quarterfinals were Argentina beat Switzerland, which was 3-1 Argentina. I think Embolo got sent off for 72 minutes for a second yellow, which was simulation, which was... Can't remember what the rules called, but where VAR can get involved and add a booking to something, which cost them a red, which took it over to extra time, and then Argentina kind of worked away at them, the 10 men of Switzerland, and got that win. Argentina have a really weird run. They've had probably the easiest run to a semi in World Cup for a very long time. But they've also made a lot of hard work. I mean, 10-man Switzerland, we go to extra time. Cape Verde, they go to extra time. They were 2-0 down against Egypt. They score 3 in 10 minutes. They've made a real mess of a very lovely fallen tie. There's a lot of controversy around FIFA. Is FIFA making sure they make it to the final? I think a lot of that, again, I'm going to talk about hypocrisy later. There's a lot of people who say Arsenal fans moan or whine or come up with conspiracy theories that are based in fact, based in, we go back coming up to 2 years, start that season, kicking the ball away would be a yellow card. We got 4 red cards in the first 6 weeks, completely derailed our season. In the same games, same things were happening, nothing was happening. We put the proof in front of you, and people said, you're just conspiracy theorists, you just need to stop moaning. But those exact same people you hear talk about that are the same people that think FIFA are trying to give Argentina a win. And I get it. The draw, there's things you can look into as far as the way in which the draw happened, almost made sure Argentina were in the kind of less awkward quarter of the bracket. But again, they still had to perform. They still had to get the wins. They still had to come top, then do this, and then other teams had to fail. So really, it's one of those things that looks convenient, but it was kind of half convenient, half just other teams didn't perform, and therefore they've not been tested. The other conversations, obviously, around Messi early on, that's not Stamp, but very Flo Balogun, or I can't remember the Norway defender, the one who did it to Bellingham at the end of the first half in this game. Very high challenge, accidental, but very high. It doesn't even get checked because they want Messi to be playing. And obviously when you hear of, actual president of the United States, Donald Trump, talking to the head of FIFA and talking about how the USA World Cup needs all the best players playing, so that's why Flo Balogun had Act 27 and they pushed his suspension until after the tournament. So the fact that they were, lent into by the president that we need the best players playing, and he's talking about Flo Balogun, hale end product, but still, it's Flo Balogun. He's got the rules changed so that, quote unquote, the best can play in the USA World Cup, and it's Flo Balogun. What's going on behind closed doors to make sure Messi is playing every game, or Ronaldo, or Jude Bellingham, or Harry Kane, or Mbappe? It does beg, the question, because Messi did give a great opportunity to get sent off, and he didn't get it. So you do question a couple little things, like the small bits, maybe like that. Maybe they were thinking, we can't be sending Messi off. That's a bit of a nightmare. It's his last one. He's the best player of all time. Maybe. But either way, there's that. And then in the Egypt game, Egypt get that game, the goal disallowed because of the foul in the build-up. Then you look at the England game against Norway and the Harry Kane, quote-unquote, again, foul. I don't think it was. But there is question marks around the fact it's from behind. Whether you get the ball and don't touch the player, you still can't challenge from behind. That's the point. There's certain rulings in football that I feel like have got lost completely in the grey of modern football where we've changed the rules. A handball's a handball. You know what I mean? Like, if you hit it at me from 2 yards and you drill it and it hits my hand and my hand is, down, but also just slightly out from my body like you stand, I think we could all agree that just shouldn't be a penalty because that's the way humans stand. He smashed the ball. He can't react. If I got my hand, stretched out fully above my head and it touches it, yeah, all right. That's it feels quite common sense. And I feel like in the modern era, we've got so grey that almost they've brought in some things that were almost guaranteed. I feel like we had, even if 20% of the rules in football are black and white and the other 80% are grey, I feel like with the added technology and everything, they've somehow greyed out all 100%. We do not know what's what. We don't know what is a red card anymore. We don't know what is a booking. We don't know what is Penalty, we don't know what is a dive. Simulation, we'll talk about the England game and the Jed Spence penalty, because I got a real strong feeling on that. But we don't actually know. So that's the issue. And with that Egypt game, there was a soft foul in the build-up. The Egyptian goal gets disallowed. They score straight after. But then Argentina go on to score. They believe that Salah could have had a penalty in the build-up to the winner by Argentina. I actually think Egypt threw that away. I think they were really naive. Do I think the second goal should have been disallowed? No. I don't think it should have. I think that's a goal. Do I think they would have scored the other goal to make it 3-0 straight after? Probably not. They probably would have sat back like they did after scoring the second minutes later. And the similar outcome probably would have happened. So, again, on paper, it's easy to put together a conspiracy theory when you just hide a little bit of the reality of it. So there's this concept, I think Granit Xhaka actually, after Mbolo's sending off, because it was for simulation, which is, I can't remember what, wrong man? There's a certain name for the rule. I can't remember the rule. But it's the first time it's been enforced in the World Cup. The missing man, is it? I don't know. Basically, it's just, there was a foul, it was given as a foul the other way. VAR looked in and said, no, it's not a foul, it's a dive. And then he got a second booking. So it's whatever that is. And Granit Xhaka was waving his arm, similar to the Egyptian manager, and that is slightly worrying, because it means the players are probably jumping on board with this concept, because he did the same kind of X you do, like the Egyptian manager, to say, like, what's the point? And he was kind of gesturing, you might as well just give them the title now. What's the point in us playing? And he was kind of waving his arms that way to the officials. And it is slightly concerning when the players are doing it, but it's natural. The players are reading things. They've also probably watched the games. I don't think I'm missing anything overly critical. I think the real decisions that they've got is people feel they've had an easy fixtures. Again, overcomable by saying, yeah, they had a nice quarter of the bracket, but they could have not also had a good quarter of the bracket if teams had performed better than they did. Or if teams have randomly underperformed. Which has happened in all the other kind of parts of the brackets, and forced teams like France and Portugal to play, Spain and Portugal to play earlier than anticipated. Then the Messi red, the Egyptian goal, and then this red. It is a dive. My problem is, I think Martinez got a penalty earlier in this tournament. I think Messi might have missed a penalty. It's the exact same thing. And again, that drives credence to the fact that maybe there is a little conspiracy forming there, but it's the inconsistency that's killed us. We've talked about it on Gunners R Us podcast for years now. If you could just tell us the rules, we can live by them, but definitely don't do the opposite. Like I said, if you don't want people kicking the ball away, fine, book everyone. Don't just book our players. It's really annoying. And football's an interesting thing, because I think what people forget is it's a year-long commitment. Well, it's a lifelong commitment from a fan perspective. There's a lot of money that goes in as far as paying for prescriptions, not prescriptions, sorry. Jerseys, going to games, all this stuff. There's so much money made, and at the expense of the fan. When you look at the tickets to the World Cup, that when you kind of remove the ability to almost win games with rules you're not being consistent about, it's really horrible for a fan. And I remember that year particularly, I mean, the goal that happened at St James's Park, the red cards, it really did, for the first time in my life, make me feel like, what's the point? And it wasn't because Arsenal were losing and we came second. It was the concept that it felt like we couldn't win. It felt like there was no, I don't think they were going out with the intention of like, let's mess with Arsenal. It was just the inconsistency. It just felt like, it doesn't matter how well you play, the inconsistency will find you. And there's no point in watching the rest of the game, because why watch a game that you know at some point is going to be completely skewed? And it's interesting because a lot of Americans have done lists of what they've learned from watching the World Cup, because they're not soccer fans or football fans. And they will say, it's really exciting, blah, blah, blah. The crowds are unbelievable. A lot better than I realised it was. It's such a wild athletic sport to be doing all this with your feet, blah, blah. And then the other one was, any game could be completely ruined at random by a ref doing a very random thing. And it's worrying that people watching it for the first time, and again, you watch the NFL, there's weird decisions. And, maybe a couple teams hold a grudge against a certain decision. For example, Cowboys fans, the Des Bryant rule against Green Bay in the playoffs, in which we could have won the Super Bowl that year. We were that good. You remember those one decision, those one things, but it it's not really governed by it. Do you know what I mean? You don't always worry about the officials making bad decisions. I know we joke about Patrick Mahomes, but other sports you don't really think about the decisions too much. Whereas with football, even for new fans, it's not just the jaded fans like myself or others, the listeners of the Gunners Ross podcast that have kind of seen it all and done it all and thought, nah, there's something up here. It's the fact that brand new people are watching it and going, oh yeah, those refs just randomly decide to completely ruin the game. And that is I think that's a bad look for football. I think it's a worry that how quickly you can learn that. And that's been kind of brought to our attention. But the hypocrisy I'm talking about is, like I just said, here's 5 things that's happened that's caused them to be here. I've given you a debunked reason for all of them. The conspiracies are running wild. England's biggest, opponent is FIFA coming up. All this stuff. Doesn't it stink of what... It stinks of what people think Arsenal fans are like. Because, like I said, we're debunking them. When I said that, Rice kicking the ball away and getting whacked, getting sent off, but João Pedro kicking the ball away when we were trying to take a quick free kick or a throw-in or whatever it was in the same game, no one can debunk that. There was not one person that debunked it. Their only response was, grow up, stop moaning, conspiracy theorists. There was no debunking. I've just given you 5 debunks of why that is a conspiracy theory. But it's just interesting that people can really jump on this and believe it when it's their team in England. That's maybe what's happening and all this kind of stuff. So I just think that hypocrisy is really interesting because you're just watching it happen in plain sight in front of you. You're going, oh, the same exact people I'm watching. Oh, okay, now they believe in this conspiracy theory. But I guess it's because it benefits them. And the best part is, this is a real conspiracy theory. The ones that we've talked about for years. Like I said, here's the proof. No one can debunk it. I don't know. I just think it's almost like a human science experiment. It's just mad to see and happening in front of you. But they do win that 3-1. That's our bracket. I say our England, sorry, because I know again a lot of our listeners. I think 60% of our listeners now are USA. So I'm talking more from my perspective there. I'll get to the England game last. The other side of the bracket was quarterfinals. Was France Morocco. Bit of a dull game. Morocco really weren't as good as they should have been. The game plan was obviously very clear, to sit back and kind of take in that pressure and then get the goal. Even though they were defending well, France were creating chances. It was a bit slow, but once they sped it up around the 60th minute, Mbappe scores, Dembele scores. I think the Morocco keeper saved a penalty in the first half. But again, similar outcome. Eventually they will find their way through, and Mbappe and Dembele did, particularly Mbappe's one, really lovely finish. Again, there was a handball in the build-up. They didn't go back that far, but in the Egypt game, they went back so far. And I know that to add to the conspiracy theory, people think they want the rematch, Argentina and France. And the only thing I'd say is Argentina and France are very good. France particularly very, very good. So it's very likely that does happen. People, again, that will stoke the fire. But unless something particularly odd happens, because Spain are a decent side. They're not the Spain of old, but they're just such a robotic, possession-based team. This France team haven't really played anyone like that. So there's a chance Spain win that, unless there's a very odd decision. Same with the England game. I think England should beat Argentina, but there could be a funny decision, or it could be just Messi being great. But either way, yeah, France get through. They get their 2 goals. They go to the semis. Again, France in a bit of a generational period in their history, I think, really good. And probably the best squad I've seen since, 98, 2000 time with Henry and Petit. And I don't know why Petit was second, but Petit. I'm just going to stick with Petit. I think I was just trying to make Arsenal. In the back paper said Arsenal win the World Cup. It was one of them. But Spain-Belgium was 2-1 to Spain. Again, a late Mikel Moreno goal. 2 games in a row. The guy is just so, Americans would say, clutch. He is such a game winner. He's such a... I tell people, go watch this doc Arsenal have made that is over on the YouTube now. And it was on the website. It's on the YouTube. It's about 28 minutes. If you've got time, watch it. About this foot injury and how awkward it was. He just comes across really good. I don't know how to explain it. Like very smart, very kind of measured, clever. He just comes across everything you kind of think he is. Yamal saying before the World Cup that he's the most underrated player in the squad. I don't know how he's not starting, but again, it's so difficult, isn't it, when players keep coming off the bench and winning you games to move it or change it. But this happened in the Euros a couple of years ago. I think he got that big goal against Germany. He's just such a big player for Spain, and I think we forget how big a player he is in world football. That at Arsenal, we think of, Rice and Zubimendi and Odegaard, and we're like, but Eze could come in for Odegaard maybe. Maybe we play Eze with Odegaard together, take Zubimendi out. We do all these kind of conversations, and very rarely do we talk about Moreno. We kind of go, yeah, I guess we could play Moreno there. We say things like that. Or, I guess he could play up front if everyone's not fit. I think it's probably time that we start realising this guy might be one of the better players in world football currently. And he should probably be in our midfield a lot of the time. So good for him. I'm very happy for that result. I didn't really have an issue either way. I like the fact Spain are kind of overcoming what a lot of people thought would be kind of a bit of a naff version of themselves. Don't think Yamal's turned up yet. Nico Williams actually looked mad when Spain scored the winner with Moreno. It was very, very odd. But France have been the team, haven't they? I really do think it's been quite a clear one team tournament. I think England have been pretty poor, but I also feel Jude Bellingham and Harry Kane have really kind of dragged us through. So we'll get to that now. There's so much to talk about in this England game, so we'll kind of go run through it. As for the team, Madueke starts, and I'd say probably one of his worst cameos. Every time that ball came over to him, it was either a handball, a misplaced kind of touch, went out for a throw, took on his man really well at one point and then just kind of overhit a cross. He's really unpredictable, and I think that is his issue. I really don't think there's too much upside with him at times, because when he joined, I liked him at Chelsea. Chelsea fans said, well, you like him when you see his highlights. When you watch him every week, it's really annoying. And again, they were dealing with him as almost like the first choice right winger for a while. And I agree, and I think that's what's weird with England is because of the Saka injury, it does go back to why we didn't take Jared Bowen instead of maybe Tony. Because when is Tony ever going to play in this team? Whereas right now, Jared Bowen would be a real viable choice. Because if Kane can't play, Ollie Watkins is going to play, isn't he? And if Ollie Watkins can't play, I'm fairly sure he'd just play Jude Bellingham up front, or Anthony Gordon, or Rashford. So the Tony one, not Bowen. I get taking Madueke, he's a wild card. Get taking Saka, he's generational. But Bowen would have been someone who could put 60, 70 minutes in of proper football, defensive, got a hell of a delivery for two very good headers of the ball in Bellingham and Kane. It does go back to how bizarre that is, especially when you think of just Tuchel knew that Saka's legs were gone. It's one of those. It's forever going to be a question mark, I think, of when this tournament's said and done. If we win it, I think no one cares. But I think we'll always wonder what we could have done, because at the moment, realistically, we're overachieving with a team that Saka is one of our best players and has usually turned up in tournaments like Bellingham and Kane. He hasn't necessarily yet because he's hardly played. He's got 3 assists. He's one off of breaking the all-time England record in World Cups for most assists, which is mad, considering he's played, I think including this game, he's at 230 minutes played, which is just... I don't even... when Bellingham's at, I think he's at 600 minutes. Kane's at 600 plus minutes. It is quite mad. This is a guy who's played a third of the minutes of everyone else. He's got 3 assists. He's a very good player, and in this game particularly, he showed 2 spells where he just completely opened up Norway and could have won us the game, but unluckily no one was on the end of it. But he's not fully fit. And again, if you had told me the truth, this is, you go back to the Conor McGregor fight here. If someone had told you the truth before, you probably wouldn't have bought in, because realistically, if someone at the start of this tournament said, I know we didn't take Bowen in that, but Madueke is actually going to be the starting winger because Saka's not fit, he can hardly play. And, the midfield, Veli Ansin, Jude and Rice, good midfield, isn't it? It's a bit, maybe passive in the sense that it doesn't want to get forward as much because he's got, it's a double pivot. But how Rice might be being talked about Ballon d'Or winner? He's not fit. He can hardly walk. And how, the right back, Reece James, and we didn't bring any cover. he's going to get injured really quick. And then their other one's going to get sent off. If you'd said all those things, I would have genuinely said, like, what are we doing? What's the point? We're not going to obviously be able to compete. But the fact that they have is actually really outstanding. They've competed without Rice. And again, that is a huge nod to Elliot Anderson and what he's being able to do. And again, he should be, when he's being touted, 116 million to City at the minute. He should be a player that should be able to hold down the fort without Rice. We talk about at Arsenal, we're going to bring in Bruno Guimaraes potentially. That is a type of signing you do, because if Rice can't play, we don't go, oh no, we cannot win. We just go, oh, we're slightly not as good as we were, but we're there. Whereas you don't want a huge drop off. It's massive that, before this, we had people like Jordan Henderson and that who, when they were in their pomp, we didn't really have anyone if he got injured. Whereas if Rice had turned up here injured and Elliot Anderson hadn't appeared out of nowhere in the last couple of years, I think we'd be in real trouble. And do I have my theories? And again, I'll get to my hypocrisy later about Elliot Anderson, because I do think he's a very good player, but I do think there is issues. Not that Rice doesn't have issues, or anyone really. I just think the makeup of the squad is a little bit strange at times. If I looked at it from my Arsenal head, because I stress a lot more about Arsenal than I do England. I think about, holes in the formation and knowing, when you watch England, we've just watched them play 6 games. I think, is it 6, 7? Or 6, 7? That is such a small metric compared to when I say, I've watched. Well, in reality, in the last 12 months, I've watched probably 11 England games, maybe 10. And I've watched 65 Arsenal games. It's such a sample size. And I learn if you play with that type of 10, you can't have a double pivot because there's a hole. Whereas with England, we just kind of go, well, who's our best players? All right, let's play them. Whether that means there's a hole or not, we play them. And that's just kind of the way it is. So, yeah, if we'd known the truth earlier, I think we wouldn't have necessarily thought we had a massive chance. We've definitely overcome it. If someone like Rice and that could start feeling better, I know he's unwell going into this game, and you could see that in that first half. That is the worst I've seen Declan Rice. It looked like he couldn't lift his legs. And I know he's getting an epidural of sorts, and he was bedbound for 2 days. He had to have a drip. He wasn't well. He came off at half-time. I think that was the right decision. But Madueke had one of the worst cameos I've seen in some time. Not good, and he did get hooked at half-time. This is Saka playing the most amount of minutes he's played the whole tournament, I think. But that first half was interesting because it was... It reminded me... So much of it reminds me of Arsenal. This England team reminded me of Arsenal. Because if you completely remove yourself from liking the team you like. I'm English, so I support England. I'm an Arsenal fan because I'm Arsenal for it's deeper than everything. But, you don't get to choose these things. These are just the things you support. Naturally with that, you're a bit biased. If you've won it, like, for example, Arsenal won the league, I can pull myself out enough and say, wasn't the best looking, was it? But I can't pull myself out enough to be like, that was rubbish. It's like, because... I know I couldn't get away with saying that about City and being like, oh, you looked rubbish, but they won the league. It's like, yeah, you can't really say that. So I'm half and half. But with England, I can say safely, it's not been good. We've not played good football. I think the second half of the Croatia game was very good. I think we were unlucky with some low blocks. But generally speaking, we've turned it on for 10, 15 minutes of every game and taken the game away from a team like Mexico, like this one, like the Congo game. And I think it's been enough. But there are so many similarities with Arsenal, and Arsenal played quite a few games this season where after 30 minutes, we hadn't created massive chances, but we were so comfortable. So comfortable to a point where even I actively would say in the room, like, this is one of the most one-sided games. Anytime I said that or thought that with Arsenal, we usually went on to lose it. When I look at, I think it was Man United at the Emirates, 35 minutes in, I remember thinking, I've never seen such a one-sided clash between Arsenal and Man United, or even Arsenal and anyone. They showed nothing, Man United, and we just looked comfortable. And all of a sudden, that comfortableness, it was one long ball, a slight mistake, and a goal. All of a sudden, everything went a little bit off the kilter. And after that, I think Saliba didn't put his foot on the ball and it rolled right through, but we got away with it. Then there was a misplaced pass from midfield. We got away with it. And then eventually we didn't get away with it. It went in and they get another one. And then we get back into the game. They win it. It was just one of them where you just think, oh, God, after 30 minutes, I've never been that comfortable watching my team. And then at 90 minutes, you're going, how did we lose that? And England stink of that a little bit. Like, when I'm watching them, even in that Norway game, we looked so comfortable after 30. I don't know when the goals happened, but before they scored, basically, it felt like nothing was going to happen. About 35 minutes. And we were just kind of watching it. And there was that one moment, I think they talked about it on Stick to Football. Is it Stick to Football? The one with Roy Keane, Neville and Wright. I think it's called that. It might be... Oh, I don't know. I think that's what it's called. They talked about it. I think John Stones has that like misplaced pass kind of control. Haaland's nearly in. And it was just almost like we'd lulled ourselves to sleep with how comfortable we were. And from that moment, over the next, I think it was 3 minutes, they made 26 passes completed. We made 1. And it did feel like there was a moment where they were just so comfortable that they kind of fell out of gear. They were in second gear, third gear, and it was actually enough. They fell into they stalled. And all of a sudden, Norway go, do you know what? Actually, they're here for the taking. They went forward once, and I can't say his name fully. Schjelderup. I really struggle with that. As you can hear, the youngster, he's got a shady past. Don't want to get into it, but either way, it's a cross, really, isn't it? It's kind of a mishit cross. It swings across the kind of. If you actually look at the trajectory of the ball, it moves so much. So there's an element I want to blame Pickford. There's an element of just like that's bizarre the way that ball moved, and also you don't expect him to miss kick it like that. And also the speed of it was 6-7 feet in the air. Oh my god, 6-7. And it's just it's almost like one of those Ronaldo free kicks. But when you're expecting someone to loop a cross in, it's very odd to see that. And you see Pickford almost pull his hand away because he thinks it's safe. And it goes in the far post. And instantly I thought to myself, Arsenal, too comfortable. And I thought of the World Cup 2002. I thought of Seaman getting lobbed by Ronaldinho. And I went, we're going to go out here. That is all the signs of a team that something's wrong here. Something's not going right. And after that moment, they looked in control. We didn't have a bounce back. We didn't start kind of pushing then. We looked even more out of favour. They were getting on the ball more, and I thought, this is looking nervy. And there was that one moment. I think realistically, Haaland fouls Gueye on the halfway line. And that's what allows it to be 2-on-1. And I think it's, the big lag, Sorloth. He can just square that to Haaland and he's in, and that's 2-0, and I think that is done. Would the goal get removed because of the throw and the push? I don't think so. Because what we saw later on, do you know what I mean? I don't think it does, because when you look at the build-up of the actual Norway goal, Harry Kane has the ball, the guy comes from behind, he nips it away with his foot. We had the ref that came over the kind of comms, and she said the ball is touched. Snicko is used, or whatever they call it in football. The ball was touched by the boot of the player, and he doesn't touch the player. There's certain angles where it does look like he touches the player. Whether he touches the player or not, you cannot challenge from behind. Whether you get the ball, whether you don't get the ball, you cannot reach from behind and nip the ball away. That is, again, like I was saying earlier, this grey area. The only thing I knew, when you were growing up, was whether you intend to catch the player or not, and whether you do, you can't come in from behind. You can't dive in from behind. You can't reach around from behind. It's just not, that's the rule. So I do get the concept that should have been a foul. Is it enough to overturn if the official saw it and felt there was no touch on the ball and he feels that from behind's fine? Then I can understand them not overturning it. But I think this one should have been overturned if it had gone in. But either way, we will not know, because Sorloth doesn't square it. He doesn't square it to Haaland for the easy 2-0, which is bizarre. And shortly after this, England get their goal, which is made by a wire, Gordon and Bellingham. So a lot of people, there was a lot of talk online. I think the pundits talked about it a little bit. It does, when you watch the video, I'm going to try and find the video, but it does look like it does hit something, like the trajectory of the ball doesn't look right. I think FIFA's response has said that the heartbeat in the ball didn't detect any touch on anything while it was in the air, so therefore they couldn't have removed it because there's no proof, which is interesting because we're going by the heartbeat inside a ball, which is new, I don't know, tech over just, cameras. Cameras are pretty good tech as far as trying to find out whether things happened or not. And if you see the footage, it's not just the fact that it's hard to tell, but it does feel like maybe it kind of drops a bit quick, like kind of goes from kind of the natural progression to kind of like it just drops. But it's the way the players react, because if you look at Gordon and the Norway player, they both have to run forward to it, and the Norway player actually stops, which I assume is because he saw it hit the wire and he thought, I think in the rule that if it hits a overhead wire or a camera or anything like that, the ball has to be stopped. So he stops. I don't think the likelihood of the goalie spotting it and that Norway player spotting it, and then both not judging the flight of the ball and having to run to it, all of that tells you to hit the wire. So I think the goal should have been disallowed. It doesn't because of, again, brand new tech of the snicker or whatever they call it here. But Gordon does really well to kind of get down and drives that ball into Bellingham, and Bellingham kind of just puts England on his back and knocks it past a couple of players and just gets it across goal. It's such a simple goal. You don't see that often against teams that are in maybe a mid block, but he finds a way, which is why he's one of the better midfielders in the world, if not the best midfielder in the world. And we go into half-time 1-1, and I think we're very lucky with that Sorloth chance and then the wire. So I think, the same people with conspiracies about Argentina might have to start feeling the same about this one. But second half happens, and it's a little bit... We make changes, Saka for Madueke and Rice off for Eze, which I thought would be Rodgers for that running power through midfield, but it's Eze. I don't think necessarily Eze adds much to the team in that game as he should. But again, the balance of it is very odd. I think we clearly get better. I think we become a lot better in the second half. But there's a spell, the last 20 minutes, I'd say 15 minutes of them, Norway looked like the team more likely to win it, in my opinion. That's how I started to feel. And it wasn't until maybe injury time we had a chance. Saka obviously creates a couple of very good chances that don't get capitalised. But it's not until those last couple of minutes that I started to think, do you know what? I think Norway's have ran the race. Do you know what I mean? You could see their body language. They'd had to make some subs. Haaland looked hurt. That if it does go to extra time, I think we should be able to pick them off, because they just looked fatigued. They looked done. They didn't look like they could do much more with it. But it goes to extra time, and almost instantly Morgan Rogers, who comes on for, I want to say Gordon. I feel like he comes on for Gordon. He has a shot. It bounces just before the keeper. And this is the benefit of having players like this. This is a reason why I'd love him at Arsenal. Is sometimes we don't take enough shots. And against low blocks, something you can do is shoot. If you do that and you have people that look in the live, like this goal was very similar to Moreno's the second goal against Belgium late on, is Bellingham's alive to it, and he just reacts to it, gets that ball in the net, and that's it. And at that point, I felt very confident, even though it became a bit of a basketball game for moments. Again, I just don't think Norway had the players on at that point to really try and capitalise and get back into the game. The Norway keeper made a couple good saves from Saka and Jed Spence. And what happened here was there was a big moment where Jed Spence, you could see him kind of dry. He came on, and I do not like Jed Spence, but I thought he was unbelievable in this game. He's my man of the match. He came on this left-hand side for O'Reilly. And later on in that half, I think it wasn't actually that far after the Bellingham goal to make it 2-1. He kind of drives down that wing. There is nothing in the box. There's no one looking to help him. And he just takes it upon himself to get into the box. He drives in there. He cuts it into his right foot. And as he does, the guy's too close to him, bit clumsy, takes him out. Penalty. And I thought, that is just unbelievable play. That is just, again, like Bellingham, putting on your back and just going, all right, I'm going to make sure this game's won. They start looking at it, and I think, yeah, it's a penalty. Then they go to check it, and it's going to get overturned. It ends up getting overturned because they feel he initiated the contact. And I have such a strong feeling on this, because if that's an offensive foul or not a foul at all, then wing play's dead. because as a forward, as a youngster, I played for Palace and Reading and played at good levels across my time until I was 18. The one thing as an attacker you have to do is, if you're trying to knock the ball past a player or anything, you just got to get in front of him. You got to run across him and you got to run from in front of him. That's what you're taught. Never run side by side. What's the point? You're giving them an opportunity. You have to knock across their body and run across them because you have the benefit of the doubt as the attacker. You initiate that. So you knock it past, then you step across him because he has two options. He has to either take you out or he has to back off and let you go. And that's the point of attacking football. That's the point of winning a duel is if you're good enough to get ahead of him, it's his prerogative now. He has to either move or he's going to be clumsy. He doesn't want to take you out, but he's going to have to because he's too tight. You can't get that tight. You hear people say all the time, oh, he got too tight, that's why it's a penalty. That guy shouldn't be that tight to Jed Spence. So when he cuts across him and he's going to shoot, that's what he wants to do. So he has to step across him anyway. But whether he did or not, he has to step across him as an attacker. You're trying to get ahead of him. And again, like I said, and they felt it was the right decision in the end, the pundits and that. And I just thought, well, what's the point? That's like saying next year, how often it happens where people slide Haaland in and you're one-on-one with the centre-back and Haaland's first touch will go with his right foot across the guy running on his right-hand side. He'll knock the ball forward 10 yards, 5 yards, whatever it is, and he'll knock it at an angle that's closer to the defender and he'll run diagonally across the defender. That's the point. That's what you're taught to do. It's how you do it. And what a defender will do is he'll throw his arms up and he'll jump and he'll almost like skip for a second to allow Haaland past, then he'll run. And that's all Haaland was looking for, was you to have to back off for half a yard. Now he's got half a yard on you. It's a running race, but he's half a yard ahead. Means that half a yard means he gets a shot away. That's the point of football. That's the point of attacking football. Or the defender just pulls him down, or his legs catch each other and they go, yeah, he got too tight. He shouldn't have been that tight on him. So for whatever reason, they've decided now that that's not a thing. It's initiating contact if you do that. So what they think is the future of football where if you're on a wing, you just got to hit it ahead dead straight and you've got to have a foot race and allow that defender to get his leg in. Because then we're just looking at a defensive-minded rule book. And I don't think that's going to benefit anyone. So I feel quite strongly that was a penalty and I disagree with that because I just think the sentiment of football, again, the grey area that I talked about earlier and how it's kind of getting greyer, that's not even a rule. That's just a fundamental skill in football. It's like saying, oh yeah, don't, never control the ball and don't, like the ball can't not move. You've got to trap the ball and it can't move. You have to keep it moving. Otherwise, that's not acceptable. It's like changing just something we've done forever for no apparent reason other than to benefit a defender, which I just don't get. The other one was in there was, I think Haaland pushed Elliot Anderson on a corner. I think that was in real time. They scored a goal because it does actually touch Haaland, and it was one of those new rules where because the ball hadn't been played yet, it's a retake of the corner, not an instant free kick to England, and we've not seen that much. But because it was before the ball gets played, it goes back. I think it was a foul. It was a two-handed shove. You can't really do it. And he had a real issue with Elliot Anderson and Gahey. I kept throwing them both to the ground, which is interesting because they're going to be both all teammates in the next couple of months. But that goes, extra time. It kind of dwindles, I'd say, at the end. And then right at the end, everyone's kind of remembering the brand new Stuart Pearce of Dan Burn headering that ball and absolutely destroying the Norwegian player. But that's England in a semi-final. And when you look at the tournaments over the last 8 years, World Cup, Euros, it's a semi-final, a final, a quarter-final, a final, and now a semi-final. If they can make a final, it will be back-to-back finals in Euros and World Cups and 3 finals out of the last 4 tournaments, which is, I don't know, it's mad because it feels like it's normal now and something that we expect, but for so long was definitely not something that ever happened. It was, I think it's our 4th semi-final of all time in any tournament, and 3 of them have happened in the last 8 years. So it feels very, I don't know, maybe we need to step back and just accept that, oh wow, like we can talk about, the years of Beckham and Gerrard and Lampard and all these players, Shearer, and the golden days, and they never really accomplished much. And then, we do have a team now. This is where our levels are at, where, Madueke, Jed Spence, Elliot Anderson, Gordon, Kane, Bellingham, a very unwell Rice, Konza, Nico O'Reilly, Pickford. These guys could lead England to a World Cup. And it's just such a weird bunch. And I think sometimes we just don't realise the level is just getting so much better because we think so fondly of Gary Neville, for example. But, could he play in the modern game? I don't know. And then we think of someone like Jed Spence and we're all a bit like, ugh. But is there just a general baseline so much higher now than it was? Because I think about that with Arsenal when you think of Saka, Smith Rowe, Iwobi, Willock, all these guys, they got through Arsenal because we were in such a bad state. We were willing to take a chance. Because you can take a chance on a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old when you're coming 8th every year because teenagers will lose you games. But when you know you're going to lose, 40% of your games, you can take that chance. When you're going for a title or Champions League, you can't afford to lose any games. There's not one game you can go, yeah, that's fine. I know it was a mistake, but we'll be all right. You have to win everything. You have to be almost near on perfect. And that's why I talk about the base level now is someone like Dowman, Lewis Skelly in the running. You've got to be very good to be trusted in those moments because usually players make it through sliding doors moments. A club is on the down. Like, for example, Rio's getting a chance last year, but it was only brief, but this year he got a chance. Mainly because they didn't know what was going to go happen with Salah. They started playing him more. Look where they are. I'm not saying it's Rio's fault. I just mean you don't expect to challenge for a title when you're having to place a lot of time into a 16, 17-year-old. Unless you're extremely exceptional when you look at your Mao and this Euros a couple of years ago. And what we've got with Dowman. Because of all managers, Arteta's not one who's going to take a risk like that. And he loaded that kind of load onto him in huge moments this season. And he actually repaid it. He got goals, he got assists in times where we needed it, and the team looked jaded. And I mean, the level must be so good. And that's what I think of that base level with England is, I think we had an amazing 11 in 2000 and whatever it would have been, 8. And a great one in 2004 or 06, 02, 98. All unbelievable lineups. 2010, 14, 18, 2010 and 14, maybe not the best lineups. When you look at we had Milner, Ashley Young, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Dele Alli as our kind of options. When you think of now with Ezra, Rogers, Jude Bellingham playing for, you just look at the front line. If it was Saka, Gordon, Bellingham behind Kane, and then let's say it's Elliot Anderson and Rice. It's Man City and Arsenal behind Real Madrid, and then Arsenal on the wing with a Bayern Munich up front and a Barcelona on the left. It's just different. It's different to what we've experienced, and I think the baseline's so much higher, and I think naturally to be good, like Bellingham good and Kane good, is even so much higher than what it was to be good back then when you think of Beckham and these guys. I'm not saying, Beckham, Neville, these guys, they all won world championships, Champions Leagues, all sorts. But I think the general level of the world is up, and I think the general level of England is up. And so therefore there's certain players we don't overly rate, but they're actually much better than a lot of players we've had in the past that we considered great. And I think we just kind of started to learn that. We did win. So the semi-finals, there'll be one tomorrow, which will be Spain and France. And then the semi number 2 will be Argentina, England at 8 o'clock in Atlanta, air-conditioned indoors on Wednesday, which will make it very interesting. And the final will be the weekend. I can't remember if it's Saturday or Sunday, but the 3rd and 4th place finish will be the day before, I believe. It's a huge moment. I think it's a great opportunity. I do think if you said, who would you want to play out of the 3 teams left that aren't England, I'd say Argentina are the team that I would be happiest to play. I must admit. Not saying that means we'll win. I've never, even when they won the World Cup, and they're similar this year, and again, they've not really played anyone of note, but they've made a real hash of a lot of games that they shouldn't have. Their fullbacks aren't great. Their centre-backs are out of control. Messi is the best player they've ever lived, and for whatever reason is still unbelievable. But I think if England are played correctly in an air-conditioned and Rice is back fit, Saka starts, I don't see why they shouldn't win this game and go to a final, a World Cup final, which is just, mind-boggling when you think of that. It's one thing to say it and be like, oh, we have the players now. But to do it is another thing. Do you know what I mean? Like that's well, I've never seen a World Cup final. 66 is the only time we've ever made a World Cup final. You know, so that to do that would be generational, and those players will become legends. And Jude Bellingham might be playing the best tournament of any England player in history. I mean, that's legendary stuff. Him and Kane are both on 7, I believe. For a midfielder to be on the same as many as the best forward probably in the world right now. And the fact is, Argentina have Messi, Spain have Yamal, France have Mbappe. France, you also look at Dembele, you look at Barcola, you look at Doué, you look at Elise. Yeah, there's a lot of good players. But you look at England, it's Kane, it's Jude. It's more than the one player. So instantly, you know, with that metric, you think it's England and France should be the final. But we also do have Rice, and we do have Saka, and we do have Gordon. These are top players. Maybe not Elise good, or Dembele good, I don't know. But generally speaking, there's no reason why they can't go on and win this. But here's the big but, and this is the hypocrisy that I wanted to get to. England and Arsenal have a lot of parallels this year. I think a huge amount of parallels. And we listened to pundits, content creators, friends, family, anyone that would listen. We've listened to as Arsenal fans this year how bad we are. Awful team. Trash. Hard to watch. Ruining football. Awful. But then we got to two finals and won the Premier League. But you're still not very good. So how do you win a Premier League but not be good? I don't know. And it went, you know, obviously that was all kind of, I think, blown out of proportion. I think a lot. I think we're a lot better than what people realised. But I also do get that what they're saying is like, it was a bit of a tough watch. But I mean, I've watched a lot of Pep Man City teams over the years win leagues. I've thought I can't even watch 90 minutes. It's that boring. So, you know, this has happened before. But it's just interesting to watch England. And, you know, people said, like, our Arsenal squad's not good enough. They're technically not good. They somehow just keep winning games, but they're not good. Set pieces. Only have 1 or 2 good players. It all stinks of England, doesn't it? And to watch the exact people, like I said, talk about how awful we've been, but we win. To then watch England and be able to, for me, you know, probably step back more than the other fans of England who aren't Arsenal fans, because I'm much bigger an Arsenal fan than I'm an England fan. And go, oh yeah, you like it now though, do you? You know, North London forever. Oh, it's embarrassing. It's forced. It's, you know, Americanized. Like, why are they doing it? They're forcing it down our throats. Wonderwall. Because it's funny, isn't it? When you win a game and they all sing it like that. People, I could see everyone reposting it. You know, look at England fans in the streets, it's bringing everyone together. What were Arsenal fans doing a month ago? North London forever in the streets, all the fans. People say it's cringe. Oh, forced, rubbish. But now everyone seems to love it, which is really interesting. And then when you think of the set pieces, you think of Dan Burn flying through someone the other night. Unbelievable. But Gabriel flies through people every week and headers it and shows grit, determination. Nah, it's cheating. It's just interesting. I just think, and there's certain players that get caught up in it. I mean, for example, Arsenal fans, we all rate Saka very highly. I think he's massively underrated in world football, but I think we rate him higher than what an average person does. And I think the same thing happens with Elliot Anderson. I think I can look at him and go, he's a really good football player. In today's market, is he worth 160 million? Maybe, probably. But there's also a reason. He's played a lot of the games this campaign for England. Rice has had to not play a lot, more than we expected. And he's played the lone 6. England have been wide open, as were Forest all season. And I just think there's a common denominator that his job in the team isn't just to do people say, oh yeah, but he creates quite a few chances with slide passes. He also loses the ball a lot. He also gets pushed off the ball a lot. And he's also the reason why we are wide open. Because the 6's job is to make sure you help the defenders not be that open. Because what happened in that Norway game? God, look at the space they're all running into. Yeah. Because our midfielder's not tracking it. He's vacating the space. So I think this sums up that. But again, England are in a semi-final. We're unbelievable. Elliot Anderson's been unbelievable. Has he? Or is it the same as when Arsenal fans are saying Saka's been unbelievable? And they're going, has he though? I just think there's a hypocrisy going on here that people really can't seem to take their blinders off and realise, oh yeah, I guess we are kind of maybe hyping someone. Because again, if we had lost that game to Norway, which, we were one soil off pass away from that, is this not maybe a massively underachieving team all of a sudden? It's now overachieving. But football's a knife edge, and Arsenal spent a lot of money last summer. Less than Liverpool, similar amount to Chelsea, similar to Man United. But we were the ones under the pressure to win the league. And we won it. If we didn't, it would have been, wow, with all that money spent. So football is fine margins, and I just think people maybe can't see the forest through the trees sometimes. And I think there's certain players being lifted. And again, if we win it, everyone will go, yeah, but Elliot Anderson, more so than Rice, because he's going to play more minutes than Rice, drove us to World Cup. Rice couldn't have done that in the past. It's like, was it that? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like saying, Alexis Sanchez, Mesut Ozil, Aaron Ramsey, these players were unbelievable Arsenal players. They couldn't win us a Premier League, though. But Madueke could. And I'm going to leave you with that because I think that was telling and also infuriating for certain people. I'm going to go now. I'll be back on Wednesday for Gunners R Us, where we'll talk about what happened on the Spain-France semi. Get ready for the England semi with Argentina. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. Trossard is indeed on the brink of joining Besiktas, and that might trigger Tazoles to Arsenal. Tazoles is already playing some preseason games, scored an absolute banger for Bruges this week. So I've kind of ended up just back-ending that little bit of information that I kind of started the episode with, which also said in the first 30 seconds, I think, I pretty much gave you that information that you would have already had anyway because you're Arsenal fans. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. Appreciate everyone listening. Please tell your friends about it, the pod, and please get them on board. Trying to build it for the next season. We'll see you Wednesday. Bye-bye.